We should be excited. We have an amazing panel this morning. We've got lots of important topics to get to in philanthropy. I think you all know that when you think about the topic of future-proof philanthropy, it comes at a time that's momentous, that's important, not just for our country, but for the world. And you all know in your communities, we're facing additional pressure, we're facing higher costs, we're facing the changes of technology, we're changing and wanting greater access to opportunity. We're seeing our institutions being challenged. We're seeing hospitals being challenged, being pushed to do more. Our universities are looking to do more to train the next generation of students. And our local community organizations are having to do more to solve issues for our communities. And so we have all the answers here, so not to worry. We're going to get to everything with this amazing panel. They've already been introduced, so I'm not going to go back and introduce it. I'm going to start with Angela first. You have run an organization that is 138 years old?
That's right.
138. So in the same way that philanthropy is changing, you need to think about how your mission has changed, but perhaps your values have stayed the same. So talk about how you think about changing an organization that fit the needs of 100 years ago, but identifying and resolving those issues today.
Thank you for that question, and good morning to all of you. One of the things that I think is important for us to realize, and we should always keep in mind, that our core mission and values should never change. But what we do recognize is that there are so many externalities, pressures, man-made or natural-made crises that are created and where we find ourselves today in 2025. And so some of the things that we take a look at United Way worldwide, because we are in 35 countries, recognize that one, we want to ensure that every person in every community can thrive. What does that mean? You heard the announcement that John Hope Bryant, Van Jones, and others said about the impact on AI in the workforce. So as a nonprofit that focuses on economic mobility, we think about what are the tools that we can tap into using technology to ensure that people have the opportunity to reskill, upskill, and or do other things that are make sure that they're innovative. The other thing that I will say, as a 138-year-old organization, we still keep in mind that it is important to maintain this human connectivity. In this age of AI and technology, it is so easy to default to the tech. But we are, at our core, human beings, spiritual beings, and so we must not forget that. And so in doing the work, whether it's in corporations, whether it's in the nonprofit sector or the government sector, don't ever forget, we still need the human-to-human connection.
So you address 48 million people. How do you maintain that human contact with 48 million people in 35 countries around the world?
We do it through our millions of employees, volunteers, donors that go out and volunteer every day, that give of their treasure, that activate communities. We work in partnership with more than 70,000 nonprofits. So there is, at least in the United States, a United Way in your community, because we cover 95% of communities in the United States, and we fund and partner with other nonprofits. So again, the key is really partnership.
So, Claire, your organization is a very young, 60-something years old. How have you thought about how your mission has changed, your values, again, to solve the issues that you want to solve?
Yeah, I mean, I would double down on what Angela just said, which is the values don't shift. And who we are here for doesn't change. We are the independent philanthropic affiliate of AARP, so our focus is firmly on the 39 million people over 50 in this country who are living in poverty or one life event away from slipping into it. So how do we better serve them? How do we dismantle barriers and open up pathways to opportunity? And that's where I think we have shifted and really evolved in the past few years to stop asking how do we serve them better? How do we make poverty less grinding? But really, how do we start to marry that? Because that's important work. And we can't walk away from that work, but how do we marry that with really going after the systems and structures that keep people in poverty? Whether that is really complex systems to apply for benefits, whether that are like really strongly held, and I will say I've had to dismantle my own ageism and biases that I think we all carry with us within the workforce, and how we think about older workers, or going after what I consider the sort of poverty penalty in this country. It is incredibly expensive to be poor in America. And so how do we go after that and create equitable access to fairly priced goods and services?
Right. We're going to come back to that because those are very important questions. Brian, let me bring you into the conversation. Your organizations have been around for a little bit less time, but you've changed significantly. And what I found interesting is that you look at the problem and figure out the best way to solve the problem with your different organizations. And so can you talk a little bit about how you start with the consumer first or the problem first to identify and solve whatever issue you're trying to get to?
Absolutely, and you know you're in good company when your answer to the question about what do you do over time is similar to folks like this. We talk about being a principle-based organization. So Stand Together is a philanthropic community. We work with about 1,000 different business leaders and philanthropists to come together to try to solve hard problems. The secret to our success is learning from the experience of all of those different people, as well as the thousands of social entrepreneurs that we work with. So our principles don't change, but in order to be effective, we have to learn, and our strategies absolutely have to change. And as you mentioned, Eric, one of the things that we've learned over time is that the problems in our society that are holding people back are too big for any one organization to take on their own. And so they require what we talk about as a comprehensive approach. Right? If you want to solve something like generational poverty, there's no single solution that's going to get it done. And what we've found in the nonprofit sector is the sorts of things that tend to cause organizations, companies in the for-profit sector to cooperate and to figure out how to specialize and achieve things like gains from trade are often absent or just very underdeveloped. And so when you can get an organization in a community that's working on one piece of the problem to recognize that if they really focus on what they do best and not try to boil the ocean, not try to do everything, but rather rely on another organization that can rely on another organization that can rely on another organization in that same community, each one of them taking on a piece of the problem, then the effect that they can have, the impact that they can have in actually making a dent on some of those really big challenges in our society, it's just off the charts. And when you get that going, and when organizations that have been working on this for a long time, feeling like they've had to do it all themselves, when they change their mindset and they realize, hey, we're all in this together, and my success can depend on your success and so on, the results and what we can accomplish really are just extraordinary.
Yeah. Eric, do you mind if I just, because I want to chime in on what you said first, Claire, about systems, and then Brian, pick up on what you said, because systems have been around for a long time. And there are certain systems that seem just entrenched and that you can't move them. And I want to just commend everyone in this room. You can create your own system. I am tired of trying to be invited to sit at a table. I'm setting my own table, and I'm inviting you to join me.
Right. That's
Claire,
right.
do you want to add to that?
Well, I just wanted to build on what Brian said. It's not just doing what you're doing, it's actually recognizing, and I think this is what you've done, is that actually philanthropy often encourages the other behavior.
Right.
Yes.
Like philanthropies are often out there, and unintentionally, we're encouraging organizations to view each other as competitors.
Right.
Rather than potential collaborators. So how do we change our own behaviors so that we create that opportunity for collaboration and the incentives for collaboration, recognizing that we have created the other incentives unintentionally? I think that's incredible.
I think that's right, and if we're going to talk about things that philanthropy can do differently to facilitate systems change, I think that we could be here all day. I would just build on that. I think the other thing that we can do, and by extension, everyone here, because you're all engaged with organizations in your communities, and many of you are philanthropists yourselves, we can take more risks.
Yes.
Right? The problems that we're facing today are extraordinary,
Yes.
in many ways unprecedented.
Yes.
And if we limit ourselves, or if we continue to ask groups to play it safe, we limit ourselves to the things that came before, we shouldn't expect to be able to accomplish the kind of things that we need to accomplish. Instead, as the panel before us talked about, we have to be okay with failure. We have to be there and help people to say, push the envelope a little bit further, because for as many times as you're going to fail, that one time that you discover the new and better way to solve a big problem, that's what's required right now.
So Brian, when you talk about the fact that we're dealing with some of these unprecedented challenges, I look at that and say, okay, 100% we're dealing with poverty, we're dealing with homeless, we're dealing with some immediate crisis that we got to solve today, yet at the same time, you need to think about the long term and how do you have an innovative solution in changing the systems.
Yes.
Now, in business, it's a trade-off, it's profit. You're dealing with people's lives. So how do you balance that tension? I'm going to start with you, Angela, because Brian told me to ask you the
hard ones. You get the hard ones. Yeah.
Okay, then I'm gonna toss it to you. So let me give you a couple of examples.
Yeah,
most recently, starting with January of this year, what was incredible, the wildfires in Los Angeles that affected so many people. Let's also talk about the fact that Los Angeles already had an affordable housing crisis, already had homelessness. And then you think about the exacerbation of loss of not only income because businesses were burned to the ground, loss of stability, loss of basic needs, then what happens? So we then see popping up the churches, the faith organizations that have been there from the very beginning saying, our structure may be burned down, but the spirit and the willing and the connectedness to community is still there, so we're gonna set up a tent and still meet needs. It's then organizations like the NAACP and others that say, well, we know some folks, we have corporate sponsors, let us pool our resources together. It's like United Way. We gave Debbie Allen Dance Academy. I saw her dancing on TV with seniors that had lost their homes. And so we gave her Academy money to celebrate what she was doing in community. And so when we come together recognizing that, yeah, we were there before the crisis happened, we were there during the crisis, and we're not leaving, and we're going to do what we can to rebuild and to make sure that everyone has an opportunity and they're not just pushed out somewhere and can never return.
Claire, how do you think about that tension between solving immediate crisis and solving it for the long term?
Yeah, so we're in a fairly unique position in being both a direct service organization and a grant-making foundation. So our direct service really is meeting that immediate challenge. United Way is one of the other organizations in this country that does the most free tax returns, a huge and important service for folks to access important benefits, not to pay taxes necessarily, but to access benefits that are available to them. We do a lot of job coaching and getting people back into the workforce. So we will stay in that direct service space with our own operations, but that's not enough. Meeting the immediate need is not enough. So one of the things that I'm most excited about at AARP Foundation is our litigation. And it's a bit like venture investing because you're taking big swings, you're placing bets, you're saying we're gonna go after some cases that could change the way people understand the law or create new precedent so that we will fundamentally shape the environment that the folks we support are working in. And I'll give you our most recent success, which we're very proud of. We were part of a lawsuit against Meta recently on behalf of real women in trucking because Meta was not serving trucking ads to women and older people. You simply would not see the ads. So you were being denied value by Meta, and that was driven by an AI algorithm. And I'm sure it was based on good intention. They were trying to serve their clients. Who's the most likely candidate for this job? I'll give you the cost-efficient solution. So we sued Meta, and they've changed their algorithm so that people have equal access to job opportunities.
Right, right. So, you know, obviously important success. You identified a problem, solved it. Brian, over the long term, how do you think about tracking success? How do you think about the ultimate impact you have on the end customer?
Right.
How do you think about the use of data today in terms of ensuring that you're getting right what you want to get right?
I think that this is one of the most exciting topics in philanthropy. So maybe that tells you more than you want to know about me. I get very excited about data. But when you get the privilege to support the number of organizations that we do, and certainly that your organizations do, data is a really important part of the operation. We're only as good, our decisions are only as good as the information that we have about the organizations that we're investing in. And so, same for philanthropy as it is for business. Businesses spend a ton of time trying to figure out how are their businesses creating value for people, and then focus on those things and get rid of the things that don't create value. And so the quality of the data determines your opportunity to succeed. And the fact of the matter is that in the social sector, we have pretty lousy data, generally. And so some organizations, or most organizations, will measure inputs, right? How much money do you spend on a problem? How many people are coming through your doors, for instance? A lot of organizations will measure outputs. How many of those people did you treat? Or how many people graduated from your program, for instance? But what we really want to know about is outcomes, right? How did your service help somebody to live a better life? Yes. How did your service help them not just to overcome the problem that they may have come to see you for, but how did it help them to transform themselves so that they can thrive and live the kind of life that they're capable of? If we can measure outcomes consistently across a bunch of different activities, this can be revolutionary. It can transform not just philanthropy, but the social sector overall. You think about it, if we have better information, donors who are directing resources will put resources into programs that work better. Organizations that are serving people will invest in the programs that work better and get out of the things that don't. But most importantly, the people who are benefiting from these services will be able to make good choices about the services that they seek given their circumstances. So this is kind of like the brass ring. If we can figure out a way to more consistently measure outcomes, we can change things for the better. And so one of the things that we're doing, and I want to ask, we are going to ask you the hard questions. We've got a partnership with the United Way, which I'm so excited about, through the work that they do to support 211 services in communities across the United States. But what Stand Together did about a few years ago, we started something called Customer First Measurement. And it's this radical idea that if you want to know how well a service is helping somebody, maybe you should ask them.
Right. Go figure.
Why not, right? Businesses do this all the time. Things like Net Promoter Score and that sort of thing tend to really inform good decisions in the service industry. Let's do that here as well. And so today, that's what we're doing. We're doing it at a pretty significant scale. You come to a service, you get a text message a few days or a few weeks, whatever's appropriate afterwards. Hey, how did it work for you? Did it help you meet your need? Did it help you do more than that? And when you do that at scale, right now we're surveying one person every 3 minutes in this country, and we're just getting started. And in partnership with United Way and other organizations through this 211 program, we have the opportunity now to bring that outcome measurement, that information, into the hands who are providing services to people to make sure they get better services. And just in the pilot program, we've already helped to refer over 600,000 people using this sort of outcome measurement with a higher degree of confidence that they're getting the services that are going to help them not just meet their need, but ultimately transform their lives. But
so
to
Angela,
scale, we get
I
to
know
do it with
Brian
United
wanted
Way.
me to ask you all the important questions, but how's that partnership working out?
Well, I think we can scale it even more. What do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I do actually want to say that for those of you that don't know, 211 is a health and human services hotline that's been in existence. Started here in Atlanta, actually, and it's in the US and Canada. We take in about 50,000 calls a day from people all over the world, and then we launched during the government shutdown 211.org on the United Way website, where you can log on and a person can type in their zip code and find food resources. But one of the things that I want to say is we're doing a similar project with AARP for caregiver support, where AARP said, how do we make sure that caregivers get the resources that they need? And the outcome from this joint partnership has been tremendous. And it shows that we're giving about 5 to 7 resources that actually stick per caregiver when they call, and it's helping them out tremendously.
And in that case, what are you measuring? You measuring the caregivers, or how are you tracking then?
Tracking the number of caregivers, number one, but two, are these resources, how are they working for you? Are they sticking with you? Are they helping you to be improved? And I don't know if you all know, I'm a caregiver, and it's hard. working a full-time job, caring for a parent or other person, you're stretched and you want to know, where can I get the support? A lot of us in this room, I'm sure, are in that situation right now. So it's about, how do we help improve and change lives in a very meaningful way?
So Claire, jump in. How's that partnership working out? And
That is a partnership with our mothership, but I am so excited about it. I have also been a caregiver. I think we will all, if you are not yet, you will be a caregiver. Like, that is the reality of America. There are about 8 million formal, like in the caregiving workforce workers today. There are something like 42 million family caregivers. You will be a caregiver. And it doesn't often happen over time slowly. It often happens overnight. And that's when being able to pick up the phone and call 211 and figure out what supportive resources are available to you. Particularly, I was so privileged when my father got sick to work for an organization that had caregiving leave, to be in a white-collar role that had just more flexibility generally, to have financial resources. So many workers have to leave the workforce early, low-income workers, because they don't have those resources. So it's just, it couldn't be more important.
so for you, is there a piece of data, is there a metric that you look at to assess whether or not you're doing the right thing? I mean,
I would say two things. Efficacy, so the outcome, but also efficiency. And I think there's not enough of a focus on efficiency sometimes in the sector, because people are sort of cash-strapped.
Yes.
We're just performing.
Yes.
And we're not looking for what is that opportunity for constantly squeezing greater efficiency, economic efficiency from our operational delivery models, because I view it as my job to ensure that every dollar that we put out into the world has the greatest impact possible. And so it's the other side of the equation that I think doesn't get talked about enough.
Yes.
So a mentor of mine once said, and I think it's apropos given the name of this conference, that hope makes for a great breakfast, but for a lousy dinner. So we have a few minutes left. I'd love to hear from each of you, about a minute each. What, with everything that you're seeing, what should we be hopeful for? With all of the issues that we're facing, what are you most hopeful for? And I'm going to let one of you volunteer to go first. Angela, do you want to go first? How's
Sure.
that for volunteering?
So, I'm voluntold. So I am hopeful about the human heart and the condition of the human heart, in that no matter what happens, that we are willing to be good neighbors, that we do care, and we will never, ever turn our backs on each other, no matter how hateful, mean, or spiteful someone may be towards us or our community. I know who I can call on.
That's great. Ryan?
Well, it's hard to follow that. I agree completely. We mentioned we're a partnership organization, so we have all these incredible leaders that we have the privilege to work with. One of our partners, an entrepreneur in technology, has a saying. He says, there's never been a better time to be a 5-year-old. And I think there's a lot to that. We absolutely have our challenges in this country, and they're significant. But the opportunities that we have to bring people together and to help people to see that the future depends on each and every one of us finding the opportunity to play our role, to realize our potential, and to bring this country forward. We're approaching the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And to me, with all of the challenges and the flaws in the history of our country, that idea that when we come together as an American people and we lift each other up, there is no challenge that's too big that we can't overcome. That's the idea that has animated us throughout our history, and it's the idea that can guide us forward. And I would tell you, people have bet against the American people before. I wouldn't bet against the American people going forward.
That's right.
Claire?
I will say, this is one of the first conversations I've had in a while that didn't focus on AI, which is kind of fun. But it's in the air, right? And what I would say is we're living through a lot of disruption right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in front of us. That can be scary. But that's also a moment where we are forced to start asking more fundamental questions again and not just sort of live in the status quo. And I think that's really exciting, that we should not lose our sense of agency and our power to shape the future that we want to live in. And so I'm very excited by that moment of kind of radical questioning. Because everything is sort of up for grabs. We don't know what 2030 looks like. And I don't think we've not known what 4 or 5 years out was going to look like in a long time.
Well, I will tell you that I was supposed to talk about AI, but I think we had a much more interesting conversation talking about how we, radically question everything, how we come together as a people, and how we always turn to the human heart to take care of others. Everybody, please give me a round of applause for these great panelists. So thank you.
Thank you.